Welcome back. I have a very special guest. One of my favorites in the entire industry is here. Vlad from The Verge.
You say that to all the Vlads from The Verge.
Yeah, every single Vlad from The Verge, I say that to.
Well, thank you.
Definitely. We always run into each other at trade shows, and it's always so hard to sync up. And I'm so glad that you found the time to come and chat with me for half an hour or 25 minutes.
I only had to stay at IFA for an extended week in order for me to be able to, find time to actually spend with my friends here.
We're on day 3, and
technically, apparently.
Yeah, I feel like it's day 8.
It is for us.
It is for us.
This is the thing. If you guys haven't discussed this yet, the thing with trade shows for journalists is that when day 1 hits, that's actually the downside. It's after the hump.
Yeah.
Because we have all these press events on day -2, day -1, and day 0, whatever it is, or day 1 is like, it's fine now.
It's open. It's like all the news is over. Now we have to try to find stuff.
Yes, you have to try and track things down, but the fun of it is that you can take your time a little bit more. You can actually experience the thing instead of just photo. It's a new gadget, it's a new phone, and it happened. I don't know what to tell you about it.
Furiously typing information and then posting.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I think you had the benefit of being able to do most of your presentation on video, I think. So it all goes into one thing. For us, you have to write, you have to do the photos. At least we also have some video guys as well. But trying to present it in every single dimension and in every single way that people can consume it is quite interesting. The worst thing for me, personally, very selfishly, is I never get enough time to compose clever tweets.
Your tweets are very clever.
But you don't get time. People don't appreciate it. You see small little message. And you don't appreciate the fact that I've been there for 12 minutes going, how do I phrase this? How do I cram in as much snark and complaining into it?
You're very good at complaining.
I think so. I think it's our duty. Quite seriously, myself and you. The companies come here and they have the positive message. So their positive message never gets lost. It gets amplified. It gets spread out. But somebody needs to point out the downside. Somebody needs to point out the weaknesses. For me, that has been Android Wear, actually. Okay, Android Wear is going to get upgraded. I know it's like a version 2.0
it's
or
coming.
whatever. It's coming, but today, things like the Acer ZenWatch, they designed it to the high heavens. I don't know how you feel about the ZenWatch 3, but they really went to town on designing it. But then Android Wear is still Android Wear, which to me is unsatisfying. And I'll say the same thing about the Apple Watch. I am not touching those things. I'm using a Pebble Steel. I'm not even syncing it to my phone. It's just give me battery life and give me time in really big numbers. Right? So just efficiency of time telling. That's all I want from Watch so far.
You and Sasha are completely on the same page. He has a Tag Heuer, that $1,200 Connect, the crazy, and he turns the Bluetooth off, he turns the notification off, and he's like, I get 3 days of battery life on my watch. He literally he does nothing with it but tell the time.
But that thing's enormous.
It's enormous.
I can just imagine him
losing
the balance of his shoulders because it's over here, and then maybe he would need to balance it with something on the other side.
The other side. So Michael Fisher was on here yesterday, and he was rocking that Casio watch, the giant, the size of the back of my hand, Casio, whatever that is. That is probably the biggest smartwatch I've ever seen.
But yeah, if we're going to talk trends, which I guess is the responsible part of our conversation, let's talk trends. First of all, IFA 2016 is probably my favorite IFA that I've ever been to, and I think it's my 7th, and I think it's the best of this decade. So much stuff going on. But the one downside for me is that smartwatches have reversed the trend of becoming sleeker. Because last year, Gear S2, Samsung Gear S2, first watch that felt like a watch and actually happened to be smart. I was like, this is brilliant, this is great. I was talking to Samsung and I couldn't stop praising them, which is kind of unusual. Usually I'm bashing Samsung for not paying attention, but they've really gotten their game up in general with designing everything. Setting aside the Note 7 hardware issues, which are just unfortunate. But the Gear S3 to me is a reversal. It goes back in the opposite direction where you're like, we're going to put GPS and LTE, which are really, really hard to get into a watch. I know that. So engineering-wise, that's great. But in terms of its fit and its size and its bulk, it's huge.
I think it's just going for that luxury watch market. I have a big watch, look at me. I mean, it's completely not for women. There's not even a little bit about that watch that's for women. So, I mean, I think they were just going for a big look at me watch. That's kind of what I thought. Because when I compared it to the Tag Heuer, we did a pretty detailed comparison. Same size, same look, same not quite as beautiful in terms of detail, of course, because they're not tech. But I mean,
Hey.
it was like I thought there was a lot of similarities between the Frontier and the Tag.
Yeah, I will say Samsung design nowadays, you can't bash it, right? I used to bash it because it deserved it, right? But nowadays Samsung design, I think they're really pushing boundaries and going forward. But something that you mentioned with the Tag and the Samsung comparison, I find it very similar. That's another trend I'm noticing, is that companies, even though they're supposed to be doing independent development and all of that stuff, I am noticing a lot of overlap, okay? So this is the Galaxy Note 7, which I've been using. And it's the same size as the OnePlus 3, which you have been using, like almost literally the same size.
Yeah.
And we can name a bunch of other phones. The Nubia Z11, almost the same size.
Almost the same size.
HTC One, no more one. HTC 10, a little bit smaller, but again, same ballpark. But something that stood out to me, the Honor 8. Just recently released. If you look at that phone, it is the same sort of glass as the Galaxy Note 7.
Exactly.
I've actually held them side by side.
Yes.
And the reflections on the glass,
Yes.
the amount of reflection, the angle of reflection is literally identical.
Is it literally identical?
Yes, I mean, the
Okay.
Honor 8 is blue, this
Yeah.
is black,
Yeah.
but other than that, it's the same glasses they're using. Like, if you tell me it's different, I'm just not going to believe you.
So when I picked it up, I was like, "Oh my God, this is exactly." Because I haven't actually done the comparison on the back. And then I was talking to Taylor, who's I guess with Honor. So he was like, "Well, there's 15 layers of glass. Some of them are specifically for reflection." Like, and how like they'd taken the time to individually craft the way that back of the handset shimmered. And now you're saying it shimmers exactly the same as Samsung.
I mean, listen, I am not a machine. I am not benchmarking it. I am human and I have my
And you're
flaws,
looking at them,
right?
yeah.
So my eyes are not perfect, but I am telling you, like every single bit of light that hits one thing hits the other thing exactly the same way. So companies are doing very similar things. Acer is one that stood out to me, which is also unusual because Acer is usually one of the earliest companies to make its announcements. And by the time that'll happen in the morning of one day, and by the evening, Samsung, Asus, even Lenovo will just submerge it. It will get snowballed by all the other news, and then Acer is just forgotten about, which is sad for Acer. But this year, they've done something different, right? First of all, they did the laptop that's less than a centimeter thick.
Yeah.
And then they did the laptop that's thicker than a loaf of bread, multiple loaves of bread. So at least those guys are kind of pushing engineering boundaries and saying we're doing something that nobody else has done.
So Acer's back. This is the first year, and I would say 2, maybe even 3, that I'm looking at their lineup, and I genuinely want to review it myself. I don't want to pawn it off to somebody else on the team.
Don't say that. We always want to review everything
We always want to
ourselves.
review everything ourselves. But to be honest, I'm really excited about the Swift 7.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so the Spin 7.
Okay.
The Spin, not the Swift. The Swift, you talked about that. Now it's the world's thinnest laptop or whatever, under a centimeter. I'm just not down with the bezels. I'm not down with the bezels, and I'm not down with the fact that not a single part of that device is upgradable.
Oh, what? Is that new?
But they can offer different storage options. It's like it's.
Oh, you mean in terms of the spec right away?
Yeah,
Right.
there's only an i5 option. Okay, fair. It's super thin. They can't go i7.
Oh, but that's the other thing. We need to talk about this.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we're not in Intel's booth, so we can.
So we can actually talk about.
Okay.
We might sit on opposite sides of this. So this is really good. Okay.
Okay.
Complain.
All right. They took away the Core M designation.
They took away Core M.
And they took it away because it got bashed heavily because it was not good enough to put into a laptop. Now, the original MacBook was not fast enough because it relied on Core M, and it was not alone. Right? Even before the MacBook, Asus, a year before the MacBook, they announced one of those ultra-thin laptops.
Yeah.
That was based on Core M, and it just kind of faded away. So, okay, you have this chip, and then you iterate on it, you improve it, fine. Core M, you're stepping it up. And now all of a sudden it's a Core i. It's a Core i5. No, that is just no. Because for 2 years you've trained people to know Core M, junk, Core i5, reasonable, mobile experience.
And now you're going to basically go, well, so I've reviewed the ZenBook 3.
Yes.
And I'll be honest with you, I have no problem with this. I have no problem with this
And
core,
is that
core
based
designation.
on the former Core M, now Core i5?
Yeah. Right? So, okay, so this new Y series, right? Core I. So I'm calling it Y series Core I, and then the other one is real Core I.
Yeah, it's
right?
the U series.
The U series, like the real one. The real one.
Yeah.
So the way that I look at it is
The U series is the one that can do push-ups and run.
No,
and
but
actually
okay,
do
so
things.
the Y series has the burst mode to 2.3 gigahertz, right? So it opens Photoshop faster than my Surface Book, and I have the i7 real processor on my Surface Book. So like the burst mode, big apps or big programs are snappy. It handles Adobe, not like, oh my God, this is an i7 fast, but reasonable.
Okay.
Core M could not handle Adobe reasonably. It was unreasonable to even ask Core M to open Adobe.
Well, can I do something unusual here?
Okay.
And maybe potentially change my mind while we're having a conversation. Maybe,
oh my God! Did I just change your mind?
I know. Yeah, I mean,
Sasha,
I know people don't
it's a
see this
good
on the
thing
internet.
that you're here.
Hello.
It's a good thing you're here because Vlad just changed his mind.
Well, I'm saying potentially.
Potentially.
This needs to be proven by hands-on experience.
Yeah.
As everything else.
Yeah.
But, I know it's a very unusual thing to find on the internet, but when you have a conversation, sometimes you change people's minds.
Well,
And I will say this, all right? If the Core M performance has stepped up to the degree where, as I say, Core I to me was baseline performance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This is good enough to be considered good enough for a laptop, good enough for 2-in-1, whatever. So if Core M has actually crept up into that category of actual real-world performance, it's dicey for us because the alphabet soup gets mixed up again, and we have to, reset our own expectations in our minds. But if the performance has actually stepped up to that degree, then I guess it's reasonable.
So I would never say, you know what, if you love using Adobe, pick up this ZenBook 3. That's not something that I would say. If you love gaming, I wouldn't say pick up the ZenBook 3, right? But I think it's reasonable to assume that if it's this thin, of course there will be compromises. And you don't pick up, even if it says i7, you can't assume that something that's this thin is going to pack all the punch of something that's this thin.
But until recently, that was a thing where you see Core i7.
They tried to. So I think they tried to like push the Core M series like it was a real thing, and then you're just like, but wait, it just couldn't happen. But I thought the ZenBook 3 had great performance. Well, like.
Core M is
reasonable.
the next Atom.
Core M is the next Atom, maybe.
Well, not next. It already is.
It is the Atom.
Frankly, it is.
Yeah.
It's gotten exactly that sort of reputation. And speaking of Atom, I'm sure you guys have talked about this all day long, but the yoga book, I can't not talk about it.
We've talked about it a little bit. We have.
Gosh, I have not found a single person here at IFA who has spent time with the yoga book and has not been wildly enthusiastic about it. I wrote a love essay about it on The Verge.
A love essay.
A
romantic letter to the yoga book.
Yes. I mean, it would be a poem if it had any rhyme or, rhythm or anything worthy.
If you weren't at a trade show, you probably would have.
Which is based on what?
Touching it. Seriously, the first part about it is just the tactile experience.
Yeah.
Like the yoga book is, to me, the cardinal example of what it means to come to a trade show and to experience things firsthand for yourself. Mm-hmm. Because you will see pictures of it, you'll see video of it, and you're like, well, it's another thin device, right? And it seems to have this gimmick where
but you have this on your tablet or on your smartphone for quite a while. Of course, you have
there's a massive distinction between tablet. I will tell you.
You have the same keyboards, and if you switch on vibration for each and every keystroke, you will have exactly the same feeling. It's giving you exactly the same feedback. No. Tactile displays that way are not that they didn't invent it. They've been around for ages.
No, that's correct. And Wacom invented the particular new technology where you can write on actual paper on top of it.
I know.
And then it gets picked
How many
up.
people are actually doing that? What do you think?
Nobody's doing it yet because it just came out. But here's my point about the yoga book. There's two things, right? First of all, the tactile feel. Yes, you're right to a certain extent because Sony and its Xperia tablets are exactly that thing where they have this really nice soft matte finish on the back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I love touching it and it's super thin. And I'm like, how can you fit a tablet into this? How do you fit all this battery life, right? But then you start using it and the user experience is garbage and you're like, okay, fine, forget you. But the yoga book has that, but then it also has things which excite me in terms of its functionality. Okay. Like a minimum of 13 hours battery life with Windows is crazy.
That's fantastic.
But it's Windows RT.
Yeah.
What, really?
No, of course
not.
No,
there's no
Windows RT.
I heard it was a limited version of Windows.
It's Windows 3.1 for work groups.
In any case, I'll take the Android version. I don't care. The point is, you get that, and I myself have never wanted to write with a stylus, whether it's on a tablet or on a digital display. If it's on a digital display, everybody knows this. Okay, Microsoft, Apple, they know this very well. There is lag, and that lag really screws up with decades of trained hand-eye coordination. So it's like I draw, and then it follows it a bit later. Microsoft Research, they've done it, and they've said you need something like 0.10 milliseconds of lag, like to kill it, to make it feel natural. So you got that, and then you don't have the tactile response because you're pressing on a digital screen. I am used to paper because my plebeian human ways, paper, pen, and if you tell me, here, you can draw on a piece of paper with your pen, and then it goes digital and you can take it into Photoshop again and do some work like that, then that is much more appealing to me. That is, I think that is the middle step. It's like a brand new thing, but it's the middle step between what used to be in terms of how we drew and wrote and what we can do in the future.
So we're actually showing a video of the Lenovo Yoga 910.
That's the 910.
That's the 910.
That's the 910. That's not the book.
That's not the book. Let's talk about the 910 now that it's up here, actually.
Let's go back to the yoga book. And somehow I can agree with you, Vlad. Technology-wise, it's a beautiful device.
Yeah.
What they put in there in this form factor has never been shown before.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Plus the battery life that you get out of it, the ultra mobility of it. The first thing that I said is I would immediately buy it if they would just get a keyboard of like a Surface in there. Forget about this touch screen. I don't even need this. I will never ever use that. I want to have a super ultra mobile, like almost like a netbook, like a 10-inch device that is that thin with a kind of decent key travel keyboard like from the Surface, and I'm pretty sure that people would buy it like crazy. This device is a tech demo for shows. And for a couple of people that maybe are thinking about, oh, how can we put this into our vertical? What can we create? What kind of usage scenario can we create? There might be one. I'm totally getting it. But we are not pen and paper people anymore. We are just not. And you know what? And I think that if you use a Surface or any kind of other tablet, even though the way they try to minimize the lack of it, people are just not doing it anymore. This is for verticals and for professionals. The average Joe isn't using pen and paper. I mean, look at this device. It is beautiful. I love it. If they would work on the bezels of the screen,
stop
right?
it. No,
that would be even better.
Eric, Sasha, I wanted to respect you and give you the time to speak, but the bezel complaining, you're not alone. But too many people who have been going on about this. It's like the bezel was too thick. Just stop it. That is like the last consideration. There's like 10 other amazing things about this device that you're not talking about.
By the way, I love the hinge.
Oh, the hinge is beautiful.
And I think Lenovo builds the best hinges on this planet.
You see, that hinge started off life.
I have a hinge fetish. Did I tell you that? I'm into hinges.
It's not a fetish. It is absolutely, if you have a clamshell, that is one of the most important aspects of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that hinge started off life as pretty much a gimmick on their Ultrabooks.
Yes.
You can build an Ultrabook as Acer has just shown with a regular sort of hinge. But then they went to this kind of watch chain thing. But then they evolved it. They evolved it multiple times. They did like tens and dozens of iterations, and then they came up with it here. And the hinge is part of what I'm talking to you about with the tactile feel. When you open it and close it, it is exactly like the whole VW door opening and closing. It is just perfectly weighted, perfectly judged, not too much stiffness, not too little, and you can get it exactly where you want it. And those little details, you know, people are like, oh, that's the details. Well, that's the design of it. That's the distinction between good and bad design. And frankly, you know, this is so polished that you could easily say, you know, if Apple came out with it, we'd be going nuts over it. I'm going nuts over it without Apple, but I'm saying if it was an Apple product, you'd be like, whoa, here, there you go. Apple with its awesome design, Apple with its heritage of doing this. Lenovo doesn't have any heritage of doing this sort of thing. They're a Chinese company who took ThinkPad and they took a bunch of people who could make indestructible laptops, right? And it's like, where has Lenovo asserted itself? And after this trade show, as far as I'm concerned, Lenovo is now a company whose design I have to respect. Like, they've just gotten to that level. And just to address your point about sticking a regular keyboard on it, I hear you, but at the same time, I know that will spoil the symmetry of the device. And one final point for me is actually the pricing of this thing.
It's like $600.
It is $500 with Android,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna.
$550 with Windows.
Who's going to buy the Android version then?
I think a lot of people. So the
Just because of apps?
the polls that I've been taking have been it's 50-50 Windows Android,
Interesting.
because they've done a dock. So they've actually customized Android, so it has like a start bar like Windows. So it has like this kind of additional layer of functionality on top of Android that I respect, right?
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean,
Tweak the Windows manager a little bit.
I wouldn't trust Android A for updates. Well, I wouldn't trust Lenovo, to be correct. A
fair,
for keeping Android updates going.
Yes.
With Windows, you're basically forced into updates, which is, cool. So long as you can trust Microsoft, that's cool. And I wouldn't trust Lenovo to craft the software for it. So you get more uncertainty, more insecurity with the Android version. But set that aside, Windows pricing, Android pricing, if somebody had told me this thing is $1,200, I wouldn't have blinked once. Okay. The fact that it's at $500 and $550, to your point, Sasha, I am like ready to buy it. And the way that I would justify it to myself, is I'm getting this, and the only purpose I'll use it for is as a bedside thing to watch YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Because here's the other thing: all these two-in-ones that people tell you, you know what? You can flip it around 360 degrees, and you can use it as a tablet. 99% of them are too bloody thick, and you don't use them as a tablet. This thing, you can flip it around 360 degrees, and it's still probably even thinner than the original iPad.
You could use it as a
And it is so light and so thin. So I'm putting this on a bedside table. I do watch a lot of YouTube videos, so I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. I'll do that. But then the stylus is free. Well, it's free insofar as it's in the box. You don't need to recharge it, so low maintenance, low entry-level cost. You put a piece of a pen and paper on top of it, you start messing around, and it's like, if that works out, beautiful, but it's a bonus. If it doesn't work out, well, whatever, there'll be a version 2. But at that price point, I am no longer asking, how do I use this, and then can I afford it, is a good purchase. Now I'm like, this is so damn cheap and so attractive, I'll get it, and then I'll figure out a way to use it.
How much RAM does it have?
4 gigabytes.
4 gigs.
And the SSD?
64 gigabytes of storage.
Yeah, with micro SD card for expansion to 128.
With Windows, you're ending up at probably like 40 gigs or 32 gigs left.
But micro SD up to 128, so you can have storage.
I know. The specs aren't that impressive, and I learned about the Atom processor after I'd encountered it. But then again, I have to come back to the fact that
there's an Atom in there.
It's Atom powered.
X5.
I have to come back to the fact that nowadays,
to be honest, that is not that cheap anymore. When I look at the overall specs, hey, seriously, that is not cheap. That is nowhere cheap.
I'm sorry, we invited to this? Nicole, come on.
Who invited this guy in?
I'm still gonna buy it, right?
Yeah.
Just that I'm the only one. Well,
all right, but
besides Vlad to have one.
You know what that means, though, Sasha. You know what that means is that. Lenovo has actually balanced the compromises that you have to make really well, right? Because at least for me, it's just such an attractive proposition that I'm just like, I don't need to figure out purpose, I'm getting one. And the thing that stood out to me this show, and generally over this year, things like style and the way that things appeal to you in kind of a more emotional way, the human way, the human aspect of technology, are rising to the fore. Like the biggest highlights for us have been things that are just appealing, not, there's a quad-core, there's a deca-core processor, and whatever else. I mean, Acer re-announced that deca-core Windows Phone, and you know what? It didn't even get a peep. And it's not going to get a peep from people like us, because we're over that. Put 20 cores in it, I don't care. But then make it so nice that I want to hug it, right? Well done, Lenovo.
You like the form factor, and it's the same for me.
I love the form factor as well.
I'll just introduce, I know I'm running out of time here, but I'll just introduce one more highlight from the show, because I don't think it's going to get enough press attention. I think it should. If you guys get a chance to check it out, it is my little secret of IFA 2016. It is the Odyssey iSign 10 headphones.
Okay. Now, those are the ones you showed me a photo of just out there. They were like very detailed and like quite beautiful.
Yes, they're quite crazy, because they're planar magnetic headphones, which typically means you put these essentially speakers around your ears. It's always over-ear headphones. It's usually $1,000 and above, a kilogram and above. No, I'm exaggerating, but seriously, they're really heavy and expensive most of the time. Odyssey has been shrinking that down. It did it in an on-ear with a sign, and now it's turning into an in-ear design. So you have this still quite chunky thing. You have a 3 centimeter diaphragm, planar magnetic diaphragm, and then essentially you have a funnel that goes into your ear, and it's an in-ear headphone.
Okay.
And the outside of it is very angular and kind of aggressive because masculine design and whatever. I don't love it, I don't hate it, but the point is that the sound of it is just very good. Very good. I heard it in a noisy environment and still it just came through. They're $399, which is
decent price.
Yeah, quite decent, quite competitive in terms of like entry-level audiophile. The company orders it. This is the funny part. They said that they were afraid they're underpricing it. Because audiophiles would be like, well, that's a $400 headphone. They won't compare it to the $1,600 headphones because apparently we're kind of stupid. When we consume things, we are guided by the price rather than the performance.
Right.
But yeah, I listened to them for 10 minutes and I didn't want to leave, basically. I was like, I know these are 3D printed prototypes, but can I just like keep mine? I want to just walk away with them. They're really good, really terrific. They also showed me a chart of total harmonic distortion compared to Shure's electrostatic headphones, and it was just flat. It's like just barely above 0, and Shure was like way above higher. So in terms of measurable performance, apparently they're amazing, but just in terms of what I heard, again, emotional human appeal. Acoustic instruments sound acoustic. There was a bit in a song where somebody mentioned something and I turned around and I'm like, what are you saying to me? Like there was somebody behind me physically and it was a song and then I felt like an idiot.
Oh, but when that happens, I know this. Yeah. And you're just like, wait.
That's called imaging.
Yeah.
Audiophiles call that imaging and soundstage.
Okay.
It's just really precise in terms of where it places things. And I will also say, all those gaming headphones that are like 7.1 surround sound, yada, 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 they're just doing what these headphones are doing. It's like, if you have headphones with really good imaging, forget all this 7.1 surround sound nonsense. So people who game, most gaming headphones actually stink. So just as a piece of advice, get a good set of really nicely performing headphones with good imaging and you'll be just fine.
Okay, we've got 1 minute left and I'm just going to ask you, the Predator 21X.
Yes.
What do you think? Because you were like, I'm going to make a video. I'm like, I'm going to wait till it's on. So I played it. What do you think about this thing?
I think of it as a concept car or like a fashion show, the most extreme things.
Yeah.
Like being in its presence is fun, okay? There's also, coming back to headphones because they're my present obsession, there's a $55,000 set of Sennheiser headphones.
Yeah.
And they come with their own marble encased amplifier. All right, it's bonkers.
Okay.
I don't want one at home because I'll feel insecure. You know, I'll need to get extra insurance on my home to have them. But just being in their presence, being able to touch them and like talk about them is great. And I think it's the same way with concept cars as well. It's like nobody's going to drive that thing on the road, but look at how stupid and crazy it looks. You know, so good for Acer.
Yeah.
Good for Acer, and it gets us talking about them. So no harm done.
Yeah, so Sasha...
It's a no-compromise laptop. I was just talking about, could you imagine going to a Starbucks, right, and then putting this beast here on a table and starting to play Farmville on Facebook?
Well, you know what? It does have a matte screen, so it will deal with reflections, and it does have an SD card. Like, that was a hilarious thing for me. It's like, you did everything else, like, completely over the top, and then you decided to do practicality with an SD card slot.
It's a tech demo.
I love it though. Like, after I saw it on and after I used it and the Toby thing we were going back and off.
At least. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I guess
that's a compromise to me. Is the resolution like just go 8K.
Just do it.
Whatever.
If we're gonna
two
do
graphics cards for crying out loud. You can drive 8K with 2 graphics cards.
That's totally true.
Having an additional foldable screen that goes like on the side.
Yeah, like the ThinkPads.
We've had these.
ThinkPad
exactly.
W series. They had that.
Yeah.
That was the right idea.
Yeah. All right, Vlad, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for taking the time to come onto our stream and chat with us, because we always love hearing what you think about trade shows in general, because it's so hectic trying to get to see everything, and if we talk to everybody, maybe we can actually get a picture of what happened here. Yeah. All right, so we are going to be back in just a few minutes with Jaime Rivera, Pocket Now, and so don't go anywhere.